Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Element and Architecture podcast. And in this episode, we are going to be delving into an unexplored realm. What is that realm, you may ask? Well, it's the realm of Africa. That's right. Never on this podcast have we ever discussed about an architecture that is located in Africa. And that makes it very interesting to do so for the first time in this episode. So this episode actually brings us back to a fundamental and seemingly pointless philosophical question. What is architecture? What is the essential purpose of architecture? Some say architecture is for the display. It's the outside that is a piece of art for the audience to enjoy. Others, however, say that architecture is humane, that it's for providing shelter for the most human activities, eating, sleeping, studying, playing, whatever it is. The latter philosophy is the philosophy of Pritzker Prize-winning architect Francis Carré. His most famous works are not grand art museums displaying the nobility of human life, but rather local schools and compounds sitting on the impoverished lands of Africa. So why did he choose to build these small and arguably insignificant structures? Well, such consideration for the people can be traced from Carré's childhood. He himself grew up in an impoverished village of Burkina, where inhabitants lack of basic needs like education and have to study under oppressive conditions with poor lighting and ventilation. After Carré went abroad to study education, he insisted on going back to his village and make a change for the people there. His most classic work is the Gando Primary School, built in 2001 in Burkina Faso. This work is a masterpiece of an architecture in its design. It's a design for the people. Today, we are going to be diving into the key design elements of the Gando Primary School and what makes it so special that it deserves a Pritzker Prize. So let's start by talking about the materiality of the architecture. And in order to start by talking about the materials, we must start by talking about why is these structures so simple. So the simplicity of the design of the primary school is shaped by the comprehensive list of parameters dealing with the construction of the primary school. Considerations such as cost restraints, climate conditions, resource availability, and construction feasibility. And such parameters are reflected by the tasteful and significant choice of material, that is, a hybrid of clay and mud. Bring us to the first point, the materiality of the architecture. The project's success hinged on a strategic balance of embracing and going above and beyond these parameters or limitations. So to optimize outcomes of this architecture with limited resources, the primary construction material was chosen to be a blend of clay and mud, and clay being a type of material commonly used in the local context, to build local houses. And it was seen as an affordable option as the primary building material. However, as a way of negating with the budget parameters, the clay mud material was refined so that it acts as a more structurally strong material in the form of bricks for the primary school. You see, Carré experimented with a clay and cement hybrid. The refined clay hybrid bricks ended up being cheap and feasible to produce. And whilst meeting these construction parameters, it also serves as an insulator, basically having thermal properties that allows the interior of the primary school to be protected from the heat from the outside. The properties basically allows it to withstand high temperatures of the arid environment, and in this way, we can see how the material choice, specifically the clay bricks, whilst meeting the constraints, it also went beyond being building blocks of the school. It started to serve a purpose. It serves as a technologically considerate material, improving the environment inside the school as a way of improving the education conditions. And that is the material of the building. And next, we are going to be moving on to the structurality of the architecture, which is another big point in this piece of architecture. So next, we are going to be talking about the structure, or rather the composition of the primary school. So in order to withstand the frequent and detrimental rains in Burkina Faso, a roof made of stronger materials, specifically a metallic one, must be overhanged on top of the structure, or cantilevered on top of the interior structure. However, the tin roofs in the local communities are usually grooved on the surface, which creates a huge problem. The sun's heat also heats up the roof, which makes the interior of the building extremely hot, and in turn makes the teaching conditions inside the building severely intolerable. And as a way to solve this problem, an interesting approach is employed by Corée. The metal roof of the building is suspended by wooden trusses, or support beams, you can say, separating the interior building from the roof. And instead, the interior roof is now a stacked clay roof, which you can imagine as stacks of clay bricks forming a layer of roof at the top. But the roof are basically formed of pierced slits and holes that really optimizes the ventilation of the building. Interestingly, this structurality pulls cool air from the interior windows and releases the hot air from the perforated roof. So what you get now is an overhanging tin roof that protects the rainfall from damaging the main structure, but also an interior roof made of clay hybrid bricks that keeps the inside of the school cool. You see, this not only solved the problem of the overheating interior, decreasing learning conditions, it also is an environmentally friendly way to manipulate heat without having to utilize expensive air conditioners that increase the ecological footprint. So we can see again how the structure and composition of the different components of the building is cleverly designed so that it considers both the human environment but also the natural environment as well. And another aspect about the structure of this architecture is that is quite interesting to talk about is that its shutter blinds, acting as windows, serve as a great way to provide natural light into the building with the large amount of these windows the building has, without having to leave a blank space in the wall that allows basically insects to invade the interior. So we can see again how the employment of the window design, the shutter blind design that is, helped solve the problem of poor lighting inside the building by allowing natural light in without exposing it too much to the dangerous nature in the lands of Africa. And third point we are going to be talking about is the execution of this building. That is how it's built, and that is quite an important aspect about this building or this architecture. So the construction of this building is quite interesting because the establishment of this architecture is not the job of Kare himself. It was the job of the local population that helped with erecting this masterpiece of an architecture in the construction process. So the ingenuity of this architecture is not due to Kare himself. It is the symbol of the collective ingenuity of the entire community of locals that helped construct this building. And now that we've talked about all 3 points about this architecture, that is the material, the clay hybrid bricks, the structurality with the unique design of the roof, and also the execution that involved locals. Now let's go back to the question we asked in the beginning of the podcast episode. What is architecture really about? Now that we have deeply discussed Francis Kare's Gando Primary School, I think it is quite clear. Architecture is about ingeniously satisfying human needs and at the same time produce a beauty of simplicity, the simple beauty you see in the clay brick school. It is the material and composition of the Gando Primary School that is truly able to alleviate the impoverished conditions of Burkina Faso. And this is what makes Kare such a great architect to people. And that is it for this episode. I really enjoyed talking about this specific architecture in this episode, that is the Gando Primary School, and mainly because I am really attracted to the overall design and mainly really attracted to the considerate nature of this architecture, how it's mainly shaped by considering for the people living there. And that is it for this episode, basically. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.